and it's the only time anywhere in LAPD history where we added the dark blue that we're famous for.
Really? But that didn't last too long.
Fortunately, no. Although it's green, it is still heavy blanket woolen material, and I got to think it's not much cooler than would have been our traditional navy blue.
Okay, and so then they went to this uniform.
Yeah, this uniform is actually a uniform that would have been worn by a motor officer. The mounted insignia on the left sleeve indicates that would have been worn by motors. Of course, they themselves have their own unique history within LAPD's own history, starting on motorcycles with us in 1905. And here we are, more than 100 years later, still riding motors.
Now, what's interesting to me is that the women actually wore skirts.
The women wore skirts, and uniforms for women were much later to the game. The one you're looking at is an example of the uniform adopted for policewoman service in 1948. So we go all the way back to the late 1800s, where men start in the navy blue. Women don't start until 1948, when this particular uniform is adapted from the Naval Wave Service and put into use for policewomen here with LAPD.
And looking at the different uniforms, it looks like LAPD had the actual jacket, dress jacket, for a number of years, but not anymore.
We did, and in fact, this particular example is the actual uniform of our longest-serving chief, William H. Parker. This was adopted from a military model of a uniform from World War II, roughly referred to as the Eisenhower jacket, the waist-length jacket, and Chief Parker was the one that put this particular style uniform into service.
And then after Chief Parker passed away, is that when they got rid of the military-style jacket?
Well, the Eisenhower jacket was still an authorized uniform jacket, I believe, into the 70s. It's notable that it has been retired from our service, and we're fortunate to have this great example from Chief Parker's service on display here.
And then, of course, the traditional LAPD uniform that I think most people would recognize.
Absolutely. This is a uniform very similar to what we wear today, with one great exception. If you'll note the uniform belt, there's a supporting cross strap, and that's been gone since 1958.
And why did they get rid of that? I've heard stories, but you know, again, they're stories. You're the historian. You tell me, why did they get rid of that strap?
Anybody that has served in the street is going to recognize that as a temptation for somebody you're talking to. And by the time it was retired from service, it had grown its own nickname. It was known as the suicide strap, meaning that a bad guy could latch onto that strap and cause harm to the officer. So that was retired from our service because it posed a safety hazard.
All right, now we also have here, looks like a history of our badges.
It is. It's a great array of our badges, and right smack dab in the middle are the 6 different styles of badges that have served the Los Angeles Police Department.
So this one would have been the original one then?
The sunflower style badge, which you're indicating there, served us from our start in 1869 until 1890, when we moved along to the 6-pointed star that is very much associated with sheriff service.
And then just through the years, it's kind of interesting how the badge actually evolved into what we have today.
Absolutely, it's a definitive evolution from a star motif to a shield motif. And as you know, the shield that we have in our service now came to us in 1940, longest serving of all of the 6 badges that we've had in our history.
Now, I'm looking at this, and there's different chief badges. Did some of the chiefs just create their own special badges?
Every indication is that they did. In fact, that particular one that you've identified there belonged to Chief Glass, who, until Chief Parker came along, was the longest serving chief in our history.
Well, Glenn, we just looked at one of the original motor officer uniforms, and we've got a police motorcycle here. Of course, not the original, but motors have been a part of this department history for a long time.
A long time. In fact, 1905 we acquired our first 2 motorcycles, and ever since we've been trying to get traffic to move smoothly throughout the city.
I notice we have a lot of pictures that kind of document the history of motors throughout the department's history.
We do. In fact, we've got some great stuff going way back in our history, and one of the things that shows up very prominently in these photographs is the fact that a lot of them depict officers wearing soft hats rather than helmets during their service as motor officers.
You're right. I'm looking at that now, and this is probably not that long ago. That almost looks like MacArthur Park.
It is, and I believe it is MacArthur Park, but we are back more than 50 years in our time, because it was 1956 that we started wearing motor helmets. Up until that point, we wore a soft hat, something like this. Over here, we have two of our early examples of bomb disposal robots. This has always been a challenge for law enforcement on how to deal with a package, or in fact, a true bomb, without exposing the bomb technician or the handler to danger. And these are some of the early examples of how this was accomplished without putting a human up close to the suspicious package.
Now, around the corner, one of the most gruesome murder cases in LA history.
Certainly one of the most notorious. And any time a child is a kidnapped victim, it's going to be bad. And one of the most notorious murders in the history of Los Angeles occurred in late 1927, when a 12-year-old girl was kidnapped, dismembered, and ultimately murdered. For us, it was the proving of our early scientific investigation methods. This was just a few years after formation of our crime lab, and we were able to identify the killer through a single fingerprint lift all the way back in 1927.
And they called him the Fox?
The Fox?
William Edward Hickman.
The Fox was the pseudonym that he had used in his ransom notes to the family. He was trying to acquire $1,500 in cash in exchange for the return of a little girl. We have a copy of the confession on display here at the museum.
My name is William Edward Hickman, and this statement was made and witnessed on the SP train en route to Los Angeles. This statement regards the kidnapping and murder of Marion Parker. The time of the murder was Saturday morning, December 17, 1927. The place was in room 315 at the Bellevue Avenue Apartments in Los Angeles. I wish to explain in full the motives which prompted me to commit this crime. I want to make a statement here to avoid any suspicion that during my connection with Marion Parker, I took any advantage of her femininity. I can only give my word that I did not, but I give this very sincerely and truthfully. My word is substantiated by the doctor's examination of the girl's body, and I feel that everyone can be assured that the girl was not molested in any way. My motives in the murder of Marion Parker are as follows: fear of detection by the police and the belief that to kill and dissect the body, I would be able to evade suspicion and arrest. I considered that this fear and precaution were the result of my instinct of self-protection in time of danger. I killed her so suddenly and unexpectedly, or she passed beyond consciousness so quickly and unexpectedly, that she never had a fear or thought of her own death. Then, in order to get her out of my apartment, without notice, I was prompted, after she was beyond consciousness, to dissect her body. In giving these motives, I have been as honest as I know how. I have searched my mind and impulses under all the circumstances, and this is my truthful summary. William Edward Hickman. Glenn, who ended up finding the rest of the remains of Marion Parker?
Well, Mary is one of our earliest Medal of Valor winners, an officer by the name of Oscar Bear, whose picture happens to be on the wall here in the Commissioner's Gallery. He was recognized for bravery above and beyond the call of duty for his participation in the pursuit of 4 armed bank robbers. Bear himself was shot multiple times during the pursuit of these robbers. Coming of that was the awarding of the 3rd Medal of Valor in LAPD history, and soon thereafter, Bear was promoted to the rank of detective, where he was assigned to the investigation of William Edward Hickman, and ultimately the recovery of the body parts of little Marion Parker. The Bachman Gallery of the Los Angeles Police Commission endeavors to show all the diverse roles that the Commission plays in the functioning of the police department. Everything from the department manual, to the types of weapons that officers can carry, to recognizing officers for the highest acts of bravery. Those all belong to the Police Commission here. One thing that Commissioner Bachman had in common with our long-serving Chief William Parker, he too served 16 plus years as a member of the Police Commission, including a term as the Commission's president. He is a tremendous supporter not only of the Police Department but of the Historical Society, and it was through his generosity that we were able to share this phenomenal story of the executive body of the Police Department, the LA Police Commission, with our visitors here at the museum.
Glenn, isn't the Police Commission also responsible for approving safety equipment for officers?
One of their most important roles is defining how officers protect themselves. And what we're looking at here is a ballistic panel, and this was born out of lessons learned from the North Hollywood shootout of 1997. The bank robbers' bullets in that incident sliced right through the police cars that responded to try and apprehend the bank robbers. to afford officers a level of protection, these inserts are now on the front doors of the black and white police vehicles so that uniformed officers have some means of covering themselves during a